We continue our story on the dead world of Cybertron. Something's happened here. Something's changed here today. Oh, wait, because the last time we left off, the Dinobots had actually surrounded Dreadwing along with Wheeljack. And let's kind of be honest here. What is Dreadwing going to do? Like, it's either Wheeljack kills him or the Dinobots kill him. So, Dreadwing ultimately does surrender after, I'll probably say, like, maybe a quick beating, he surrenders. And so Grimlock simply asks, Wheeljack, what's he doing here? What brought him here to the first place, right? He's been on Cybertron for quite a while, so he hasn't seen any other Autobots, and he's just simply been hunting for Shockwave. So Wheeljack ultimately explains, like, he's pretty much there because, he was hunting down Dreadwing for killing his friend, Seaspray. And, Slug pretty much agrees and, pretty much understands him in that they've been hunting down Shockwave for what they did to him. So everyone kind of gets along here because, Wreckers and Dinobots are really not entirely different. So with that being said, this is where they actually do search Dreadwing and his ship for something useful, even stripping it down for parts so that Wheeljack can fix his own ship. And so this is where Swoop actually finds something, and that being a Decepticon signal, or transmitter, if you will. And so this is where Grimlock actually gets an idea. But Wheeljack is the one to ultimately say it. Wait a minute. If that's the case, I did hear from Bulkhead that the cons are pretty much out in space right now, so maybe we could use that to lure them here. Maybe destroy the Decepticon warship and take everything out. To which Slud says that would actually be a good idea. A calculated ambush and storming the Decepticon warship could allow us to just simply end this war right then and there. To which Grimlock simply pats his friend on the shoulder and simply tells him, hey, don't forget, we still gotta deal with Shockwave out there. And we've actually been dealing with some of his Predacons, killing 2 of them. However, their hunt can wait. This is the best opportunity possible. And simply gives Swoop the nod to go ahead. So Swoop is like, all right, let's actually end this war once and for all. And they pretty much tap the transmitter. And ultimately, this does go back to the Decepticon warship. And this is where we kind of see Dreadwing in the shackles. And he's kind of like, hopefully Lord Megatron terminates them all. But we then get to Decepticon warship, and they pretty much arrive. I'll probably say like, I'm gonna give it like 5 to 10 minutes to be exact. Decepticon engineering has always been far better than Autobot engineering. And this is where Arachnid simply states, okay, so we followed the transmission here. Where is it exactly? And again, they would also identify the transmission as Dreadwing, to which Knockout says Dreadwing should be here. We've got the coordinates, so did he flee? Did he disappear? Oh, and Lord Arachnid, or Commander Arachnid, excuse me. Megatron's completion is around 50%. Unfortunately, we do not have a strong enough energon source at the time to actually get him up and running. And keep in mind, yes, Megatron does look like Deviljho, but he's more of a 4 Heavenly King Deviljho. If you guys don't know which one that is, please go ahead and look it up for yourselves and watch the gameplay. He was actually a nightmare back then, so, yeah, pretty much. However, back to the warship itself, this is where Arachnid looks in disbelief at the camera view for the rear of her warship. And this is after it's been shot in the thrusters, by the way, kind of leaving it immobilized. And this is where she ultimately sees the jackhammer landing on the back area of the Decepticon warship. Now you might say, Legendary, how did they accomplish this? Well, believe it or not, utilizing Dreadwing's signal, they were actually able to use its beacon to not only identify as him, but to just simply lure the warship into a false sense of security. So while they were paying attention to that, this means that they were able to get pretty much around the warship completely, and they were hidden in a well-placed area. So, as they storm the warship, they do manage to annihilate a large majority, if not all, of the Vehicons on the ship. So, Soundwave actually rallies everyone in Megatron's area, or in Megatron's medical bay, and space bridges them all out of there to Darkmount. Because keep in mind, Darkmount would still be on Cybertron at this point. So, with that being said, this means Soundwave, Knockout, Breakdown, Arachnid, and the unconscious and, barely functional Megatron are all simply there. They're all on Darkmount. And again, Soundwave, clutching up here. And this is where Breakdown simply states, so what do? We just lost the warship. And this is where they see an explosion in the distance, and the warship simply goes down on Cybertron, crash landing, and ultimately being destroyed. And Arachnid's like, no, no, no. Now we can't even get back to Earth. We're stuck here again. And this is where Breakdown simply states, yeah, that's an understatement right now. What were those things anyway? To which this is where Soundwave actually plays some old footage of the Lightning Strike Collision Force and their time under Shockwave's care. And so this is where Arachnid simply huffs and simply states, great. At least we're in Kaon, so we have to think of something. We have to have our resources. We have to have a way to get back without dealing with those creatures. And this is where she hears a voice saying, I might be of service. And Shockwave appears. However, he's not alone here. He's been on Cybertron for quite some time, fighting and invading the Dinobots left and right. And this is where we actually see someone standing beside him, or behind him. That being the Predacon, aka Predaking. Still early released and stuff like that, but again, he's still there. And so the other Decepticons look in shock. However, Shockwave simply walks to Soundwave. And obviously Soundwave is now, known for keeping the cool. So Soundwave pretty much just asks, what has happened since I transpired? And what has happened to Lord Megatron? So Soundwave pretty much shows him the events of things here. And actually plays it at a fairly decent speed. Showing him the Knights, the Autobots, and how, Rathalos Primal simply trashed Megatron in their first encounter. To which Shockwave simply states, quite fascinating. The Knights of Cybertron have been on Earth for simply thousands of years, and only 5 of them left. Quite interesting. However, this is where Predaking looks at Megatron and actually gets interested in him. While, yes, he is able to understand the whole information that Soundwave just processed, Megatron's beast-like appearance does interest him, and wonders if he's a Predacon like him. Shockwave, seeing this, simply gets an idea, stating that if they could bring Megatron along, he would be able to actually be able to bring him online. And Arachnid simply states, why, of course, Shockwave. Breakdown, lift him up. And so Breakdown simply picks Megatron up over his shoulder, and they pretty much follow Shockwave and the Predacon to Shockwave's laboratory. And keep in mind, Shockwave does have more Predacons here. So Skylynx, Darksteel, and let's just say the Abominus crew. Alright, so we're going to just use all those guys, but they're only around like 60% ready. And so this is where he utilizes the remaining Predacon CNA and uses it to revive Megatron. Basically having a different Energon system and stuff like that. But again, still Megatron nevertheless. So Megatron wakes up and he's like, where am I? And this is where he sees the Predacon basically point blank in his face. And Megatron simply like freaks out about this. He's like, oh my god. What the? Shockwave? You alive? Arachnid? Where's Starscream? Where's my ship? What's going on? And this is where Arachnid says, well, Lord Megatron, we've actually utilized a couple of things. For starters, we used the parts of Monstructor to actually rebuild you. And as for your warship, it has been destroyed. To which Megatron then is able to tear his new body from his, shackles or restraints or whatever, and simply looks at Arachnid and asking her, who did it? Who destroyed my warship? And this is where Breakdown simply states, well, it's the Dinobots, sir. To which Megatron looks at Breakdown and looks utterly confused. And he says, the who? What do you mean, Dinobots? Are there more beast Cybertronians? And so this is where Soundwave simply plays video of, well, the Dinobots when they stormed the warship and, well, what they were doing. And along with Wheeljack as well, placing a bomb and destroying the entire warship as well. And this is where Megatron, enraged, by the way, points his mouth cannon at the wall and simply blasts something vastly different. That being Dragon Element. But it's more compressed, like it's Predacon fire. And, well, it blows through the wall with ease, making sure not to harm anything vital in Shockwave's laboratory. And Shockwave simply states, I assume you are satisfied with your body, my lord? And this is where Megatron simply states, yes. Yes, I am. As always, well done, Shockwave. However, you will be making it up to me for your creation of the Dinobots. To which he says, at once, my lord. This new army is filled with Predacons, much like the one you see here before you. However, Megatron simply states, good. For right now, get this army ready. And everyone else help him. I have something else I need to do. So, Megatron walks into the pits of Kaon, turns into his Devil Joe form, and then launches a beam straight into the air. And this actually signifies a beacon, to which the group actually sees this. And they're like, that's quite unusual. To which even Snarl even reads the energy, and he's like, that's very dangerous energy. It seems to have the same properties as toxin almost. To which, if this is on the planet, this could actually harm Cybertronians in the future. To which Grimlock is like, alright, then we'll go down there, we'll stop it, and we'll get rid of it right now. And this is where the other Dinobots kind of look uneasy. As again, toxin is one of the most volatile and dangerous forms of energon, poisonous to even them, albeit they could likely resist it to a large degree because of their different biology. However, Grimlock simply states, look, it's in the pits of Kaon, so it's a very open area. Let's just move. However, as they get there, this is where they are greeted by Megatron. And Grimlock is the first to immediately jump down into the pit with Megatron, saying that you got a new look. How quaint. Can't wait to tear your head off with it. And to which Megatron simply states, that won't be happening today. And this is where he also sees Dreadwing in their custody and simply states, I will be saving you from your captors soon, Dreadwing. And so Grimlock simply states, yeah, we're going to be beheading him right after he watches me behead you. And so the two of them charge at each other. But this is where they both jump past each other, transform into their beast forms, to which Grimlock is actually excited about this while Megatron is enraged. And so we essentially get Devil Joe versus Grimlock. All natural versus all vicious. And so the two of them fight like any other Tyrannosaur. They bite, they thrash, they tail whip and headbutt. Each blow trying to land a neck crushing or basically a metallic crushing bite, if you will. They're trying everything. However, there is one thing that gives someone the edge. Experience. One has been a beast far longer than the other. And that would obviously be Grimlock. He's been a beast far longer than Megatron, having more experience on how to use the body and maneuver. And while they are around the same weight class, and definitely around the same size as well, Grimlock simply has the more experience with it. Meaning he knows how to maneuver properly, how to shove more, and how to put more force behind his blows. So Grimlock actually does take the advantage over Megatron, and when he realizes that Megatron's not as experienced in his beast form as him, he makes sure to capitalize on it quickly, even going for his fire breath right then and there. However, Megatron actually collides this with his dragon element. Essentially, we get Savage Devil Joe versus Namiel or Black Veil Val Hazak or Velkana. We get a beam clash, and then it explodes. However, because again, Grimlock has more experience, he knows how to keep his weight down while Megatron tumbles back. And so Grimlock lunges forward, going for a finishing neck bite. However, Megatron does something last minute, and this is like a last minute thinking moment. He uses Dragon Element to blast the ground in front of him, and this causes an explosion, rocking Grimlock and him back once again. And so Grimlock, now caught in a much more devastating blast, feels himself weakening. However, he doesn't have time to feel about that or to think about that, as Megatron lunges at him. However, Grimlock, now in his robot form, wraps one arm around him and begins pulverizing Megatron's face with his other hand. However, he feels something wrong with him. He's slowing down. He's moving at such a fatigued pace, and he doesn't know why. He came into this fight full strength and everything, and then all of a sudden he falls forward, catching himself just barely. But this is where Slug realizes, dang, that's what that is. It's affecting him, and it's affecting him far faster than anything else. He's strong, but he's not going to make it. Snarl, we have to get ready. To which Snarl says, good, alright, let's set it up. And this is where he simply tells Swoop to actually go and get Wheeljack's ship, and Wheeljack and Sludge to get ready. So, without further ado, the Dinobots initiate their plan. Slug rams right into the side of Megatron into his Triceratops form, and then flings him right into Sludge, who is in his Brontosaurus or Apatosaurus form, and comes down with the meanest earthquake stomp repeatedly. And so, the two engage while Snarl is able to run over and simply tells Grimlock, we told you not to go near it. To which Grimlock says, shut up and get me out of here. To which Snarl, simply laughing, makes sure he supports Grimlock properly and then walks him to Wheeljack's ship. Wheeljack, on the other hand, is pretty much providing cover fire for Megatron. And, well, sorry, not for Megatron, for the Dinobots here, and pushing back Megatron. However, when the jackhammer arrives, this is where Wheeljack does something slick. He simply throws Dreadwing at Megatron, causing both of them to kind of go sending them flying right into the arena wall. And this is where the Dinobots and Wheeljack simply head off. To which he says, so, you said you had allies on Earth, Optimus in them? To which Wheeljack is like, yeah. Good, because is Grimlock gonna need it? To which Snarl's like, yeah, he's gonna need some detox and definitely some internal repairs. His internal system is absolutely crap at the moment. And this is where we head over to the Autobot base. While Wheeljack and his crew do have some way to go, this is where we can actually talk about the Autobots at the moment. So what's happening with them? Well, Optimus and the other Autobots are pretty much just admiring their new bodies, testing them out, testing out their new weapons, which will be revealed in the next part. So they do have some weapons. And Optimus simply asks, why was he given a beast form? To which Celta says, by her calculations, or by her, I guess you could say theorization, if you will, apparently the Matrix may have pretty much had residual energy, or may have actually chosen that Optimus should get this form for whatever's coming. To which Tiger X is like, great, then we can take the fight to Starscream and rip him apart. To which Legio simply pats his friend on the back and simply stating, they can't do that without a logical plan. However, Ratchet simply states, well, for right now, I guess we can actually use the next relic to actually trap Starscream, or maybe, just maybe, get the upper hand on him. And this is where he shows the Star Saber lodged into a rock. Keep in mind, with the Decepticons away, the Autobots have free real estate, or at least they thought they had free real estate, to pretty much get this relic. However, that's not where we end off here. We actually go back to the Harbinger, where a lot of work is being done. Considering Starscream got a majority of the relics, like the Apex Armor, Phase Shifter, and the Renaissance Blaster, this is where Rathalos simply walks around impatiently and looks over Gamma's shoulder and simply asks her, how long is this going to take? We've been here, for a couple minutes now. To which Gamma smacks him. She smacks him with her tusk and simply states, you try rearranging the Apex armor and the Renaissance blaster onto a new body, and then add someone's constant, conscience to it. And this is where, after a couple more hours of work, she simply states, finally, it's done. How do you feel, Lord Starscream? And so Starscream gets up and looks into his reflection in a mirror, and he simply states, I feel wonderful, faster, stronger, tougher, and now ready to claim the next relic. By the way, this is Valstrex as a Cybertronian. And that's going to leave it off here, you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and let me know what you guys think down below.